in the form of the Gladstone family's apology. The reality is that this conversation in Guyana is only now beginning. And those who will reckon post-apology with the implications and the steps forward are young persons. Generally, Guyana is a very young country. Approximately 1/3 of Guyanese who migrate are between the ages of 18 and 40, and 1 in 4 Guyanese are between the ages of 10 and 19. So these are some significant numbers when we consider the political economy of our country and where we are going at this juncture. So it's therefore important for the university and the center to have a conversation by youth, for youth, on what this means and how we might move forward from this. So my name is Chung, and I am an honorary fellow at the University of Guyana in the newly minted center. I would like to start the discussion by, as others before me did, welcoming wholeheartedly the Gladstone family, especially those on stage, the young people on stage here with me today. And so we would like to begin the discussion by offering them an opportunity to comment on the indication of meaningful engagement and how they see this and how they see Guyana as factoring into their engagement with this issue, with the apology that was issued, as well as their engagement in our society as they reckon with these legacies as well.
Thank you, Brandon. I guess really one of the main things that everyone kind of wants to understand and know is why we came here. And the short answer to that is because it's really important. And I think it's about what Paloma described earlier as a journey, which is first about looking backward to the history and to acknowledge the wrongdoings, as we have done and will continue to do today, and also to encourage that to become a wider conversation in Britain, where some of the history is perhaps overlooked. And we expect countries like America and Germany to accept and contest with their wrongdoings, and it rarely happens in Britain. So that's sort of looking past, and then I guess we, as the young people in our family, have to look to the present and look inward and understand how it is that it makes us feel, and that's deeply regretful, but also the responsibility falls on us to acknowledge and apologize and to try and begin conversations and movements going forward. And that, I guess, is kind of the third part, is looking forward and working with you guys and asking where our energy and time and whatever else that is needed is best placed in your country.
Yeah, I think what Felix says is bang on, and I think the thing for us, the most salient thing for us, is that this, the fear is that this, we don't want this trip to be like a flash in the pan and for this just to be it, and for us to draw a line under it. This for us is a start of hopefully a really meaningful relationship with you guys on the stage, the rest of the university, and this like wonderful country that we're so lucky enough to be in right now. So yeah, it's so much about this. We want to just have this relationship with you guys, and want to come back and see how things have changed over the years, and yeah.
I think, yeah, I agree with both of my cousin and my brother, but I think also what Felix touched on it is about opening up what is a really difficult conversation and feels really uncomfortable to talk about and to kind of admit that not personally but ancestrally you're involved in something that's so deeply shameful. Starting with that and starting with admitting your ancestral involvement and then kind of keeping the conversation going and making sure that we're all able to feel comfortable and talking about it and keeping the dialogue going and where that can go in the future, I think is like breaking boundaries of just starting the conversation and then continuing it is really, feels really important.
Thank you so much, Dante, Will, and Felix. And we want to turn to the young people here from the University of Guyana largely, but some of you also young professionals, you live in a society, you exist in a society. What does this mean for you? The event today and the act by these young people and their family. Anybody can jump in who wants to.
Hi, I am Joelle, and I'm pleased to meet all of you. We met when I came in, and I think I go off of energies, and I feel like you're warm and you're genuine, and I hear you, and just from a personal level, I can accept your apology, so let me just say that. And I want you to feel comfortable in spite of all of the emotions going around, because I think we can acknowledge this was not your personal doing. So my question, so that's how I feel. So I can't go to my question because everybody else needs to see how they feel, sorry. That's how I feel. And thank you for being humble enough, because you didn't have to. Thank you for being humble enough and brave enough to come into this space and do what you've done.
You can keep it rolling. Go ahead. Did you have something to say? Anybody else? What does it mean to you? Please feel free to share if you want to. No one else? Okay, we can. Yes, please go ahead, Malika.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Malika, and I'm really fortunate to be at this event here at the University of Guyana. I think the university has taken a stand to demonstrate their interest and their responsibility to engage in these kinds of conversations. Particularly listening to the apology, being part of this panelist, it means a lot for me, and by extension, it is very important to the Guyanese people, because it's a start to conversations that we never had the opportunity to have. And I believe that these are important discussions where we can see the Gladstone family here in Guyana, listen to their apology, get to interact with them, and have these conversations on where we came from, acknowledging how we are here today, and how we can work together to really make a difference in the future. I believe that we cannot change the past, but we have the full power to influence the future. Thank you.
What does this particular moment mean for me? My name is Keon Heywood, and a few days ago I was sharing with my colleagues and friends what I thought was significant about today's proceeding is that in 2018, the Council for World Mission had a Legacies of Slavery project where they visited various points in the transatlantic slave trade and had conversations with the time to lament, to heal, to talk about what it meant for them. And I was part of the Jamaica leg. The Council for World Mission has 2 churches in this territory, the Guyana Congregational Union and the United Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. And I'm a member of the Guyana Congregational Union. And listening to that time in 2018 when we spoke of all that happened, I felt it was somewhat incomplete because you got a time to listen to the effects of slavery and how we live with it today. And so when I learned that this conversation was going to take place, I thought this is amazing because then we get to continue that trajectory. So for me, this moment is very special and significant in my own healing and my own understanding of who I am as a Guyanese, who I am as a Congregationalist, and as a student of this university and what it represents. So this is very special, and I am excited to hear and to share.
All right, well, greetings everyone. My name is Tristana Roberts. And for me, with the initial step of the apology, as I said, it's an initial step. And a lot of people need to understand that that's the first movement in the correct direction where it comes to history and slavery. Where what UG is doing, where the indentured immigrants and indentured laborers are concerned, I think that is something that is really awesome because we all have a history. And I can say that probably 3/4 of Guyanese people are mixed. We mix with each other. We are all one people. It doesn't matter the complexion of our skin. We are all mixed. And I think it is in a good direction also that they're now helping to bring to the forefront an understanding of not only what our African ancestors went through with slavery and abolition, emancipation, everything, but also how the indentured laborers and the indentured immigrants would have come here and what they would have gone through. Because I have only recently, to be honest with you personally, started to really look into my Portuguese ancestry. And there are a lot of things that I thought that, were only now happening. I didn't realize that things would have come over with the indentured immigrants directly from Madeira. So the fact that UG now has this part that will be looking into that is something great. So more people can have an understanding, as I said, not only of slavery, emancipation, abolition, but also indentured laborers as well as indentured immigrants. Thank you.
So, hi, my name is Charika. I'm actually stepping out to my comfort zone right now, but I really wanted to be a part of this event. I know, I'm not sure if they had mentioned it, but I would like to emphasize the fact that this is indeed historic, and that's why I'm here, actually stepping out my comfort zone to be here. I think that the fact that you guys had this cross your mind to apologize is very commendable, and to execute it is very courageous, because I know the curse and the other bad stuff that can come with it, but you guys still came here. I know along the way you guys could have been like, oh, let us turn back and not go forward with it, but that is, and it means a lot. And I know and I hope that people who are at home and are viewing this, I hope that it means a lot to them also. Hearing the apology from Mr. Charles and having you guys, the younger generation of the family, here with us to discuss the future here with us. As an economics major, I am actually from the University Economics Club, And I've heard Mr. Charles made mention of being a part in the CARICOM relationship and wanting to be a part of it. I think that is admirable, and I do hope that we can work together, and since we cannot change the past, I hope we can build a better future.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tian Chung, a second-year medical student right at the university here. And I'd just like to start off by commending the Gladstone family for their willingness and bravery to venture to Guyana and confront these, the crimes against humanities that was played out across the Caribbean, across the globe, but specifically in Guyana here. So it's a brave step. So their family, they don't want it to be a stain. Well, it is a stain on their ancestral legacy that their forefathers were deeply involved with enslavement of all the people involved. They want to make that change and let it be known that, hey, we're willing to accept what we've done, we've admitted it, and we want to make the step, the action to try and go forward from here, build on what has happened. So it's part of a 10-step program, as reiterated. So this is only the first step, and it is our responsibility as Guyanese to at least be willing to accept their apology and let us move forward and not linger in the past, because that's what has been done. We can't change that, but we can only build on it and go forward to better our relationship with these people. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lissie Evans, and I would like to say that it's such a wonderful pleasure and an exciting, interesting to be part of this ceremony. And I would say that hearing the apology from Mr. Charles has been heartfelt to me. And being part of this, I would say that it's very commendable and a huge step for us as young people in the future, and that it would make a change for us. That's all I could say.
Thank you, Lissie. Thank you very much, Lissie. Please go ahead.
Right, so I think so far you can see the very famous Guyanese hospitality. We are receptive, and we are willing to listen, and we are willing to begin a process rooted in reciprocal relations and respect. We must, however, recognize that not all members of our society will, of course, feel that way, as was demonstrated earlier today. And so there is going to be a significant amount of work that is needed to move this process forward. When we discussed a few evenings ago, those young persons here, the Guyanese, we really hit a very early roadblock on what is the significance 200 years later. What is the importance and what is the relevance to us as young Guyanese today who are, you know, trying to advance our careers, we are hustling, we are in an environment where there are many socio and economic challenges that we must face. And so we asked the students and members of staff who are participating in this panel to reflect on what personally this might mean for them, their families, and then what significance does it have on our society as a young society today. And what we discussed, and after this I'll open it up to my colleagues and of course to to the Gladstone family. Our culture today is permeated by many, many, many aspects that we have inherited from those dark periods in our history. Our song, our cuisine, our very way of structuring our families, our businesses, this is still a society that is deeply affected by the legacies of displacement, attempted genocide, colonialism, indentureship, and slavery. But in that, we must also recognize the indomitable spirit of the people who have survived these horrible institutions, and we are their legacy today. The fact that we are still alive, the fact that we are living and breathing, the fact that after so many generations, intergenerational trauma, generations of intergenerational trauma, we continue with resiliency to build, to have a spirit that is optimistic within our ethnic groups, but also as one Guyanese and one Caribbean civilization. So with the sentiment of, you know, what might we as young people, not just in how we have personally accepted or not accepted, but what might be the implications of this conversation going forward? What is this meaningful engagement that we're talking about? Now, this is not a panel for coming up with programs and working groups, but what might be some areas that we should be addressing, or where can we take this very surface level start in order to deepen this relationship and build that meaningful engagement that Mr. Gladstone would have spoken about in his apology. I'd like to start with my learned friend Keon, right opposite me.
Oh. I thought you were going to the extreme right. Caught me there. Youth and young people are the future. We sitting here in this space, we are representative of, there's a song, a national song, born in the land of the mighty Roraima, land of great rivers. And I can't believe I forgot it because I have a poem that includes those very words, but my mind just went blank. But a great section of that song says, onward, upward, may we ever go, day by day, in strength and beauty go, till at length, we, each of us, may show what Guyana's sons and daughters can be. And we as young people can begin with what has already been established. There is no point in reinventing the wheel. The Reparations Committee has laid out 10 points that they're going to continue to pursue. And I heard from Mr. Gladstone that they are in support of that. And I think part of our role and responsibility is to champion that and to ensure that it continues. I think we, as now having this conversation, we need to hold our own selves, our elders, our governments, our parents, and everyone else accountable that we hold true to this 10-point plan and we develop it and we can improve on it to ensure that our selves and the people who will come after us does not have to experience some of the pain and the trauma, and we can begin that process of healing. That, for me, is part of our responsibility. We have a point of beginning, and the point of beginning could be to examine that and to begin to take action towards that and support that and lobby for that and even come up with our own ideas of how we can support each other in this time of healing, this time of justice, this time of repair. So I think we have to first hold our own selves accountable and take responsibility for that action, and which we have already started to do. And we have a model. And I know that UG has a Blueprint 2040, and I know that within that blueprint, there is also space for us to continue and to begin and to take part in and to start that work. And so we have some things that we can look at, and maybe we can begin to examine that and unpack that as we unpack the hurt, as we unpack the traumas that we've all experienced and our complicity, we can begin to use those models as a point of beginning. And those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to say something? No? Did you want to say something? Yeah.
Yes, please.
All right, for me, I think I'm a teacher, right? I started teaching from nursery school. I have taught in primary school for 2 weeks, but I still taught in primary school. And I presently teach at the secondary level. And for me, even from the time when I was in school, there was a lot more, giving more of our national pride when we were younger in comparison to now. And sometimes we try to bring up even to the simplest things of singing folk songs, and my secondary school students, if I can find 10 of them who can sing Small Days, honestly, that's plenty. A song like Small Days. So to continue from there, as a nursery school teacher, I can honestly say that when it's Masherman Year, Independence, you focus a lot on national symbols and everything. From nursery school, you learn the different colors of the flag, what they mean. You learn about the different parts of the coat of arms, why they're there. You learn about the 6 races. They learn about everything in nursery school. Every week, it's a different topic, right? So, and at the end of the month or the term, you randomly bring it back, well, what is the name of the flag, how many colors does it have, what each color represents, and everything like that. When you go over to primary school, they do it a bit in social studies, and then when you go over to secondary school, I don't know what happens, but it slowly dwindles away. And I think, I can say as a teacher, I think that a lot more focus needs to be placed on our history in that regard, taking into consideration everybody from the indigenous peoples straight forward, all 6 races. Yes, we do it in the lower schools. Yes, that is true, but I don't know what happens. Something happens by the time we reach the secondary level. It's as though everything else is more important than who we are. Right, so I think it's a case whereby more emphasis can be placed on it within the school system. Probably need to attack the curriculum and try to get it in there more, including our folklore, because all of that can link to it, and our folk songs. And especially, I'm also a thespian, so I also think that where drama is concerned, where theater is concerned, more can be placed into the theater world where it comes to stories about ethnicity and things that would have happened years ago, to help persons to learn more about where we came from and where we are and where we can go from now on. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tristana. And your question, Brandon, the question about significance, I think it's a very important question. It's on. Oh, this one is on. This one sounds louder. So thank you, Tristana, I was saying, for your question. And your question, Brandon, about significance, which is a very important question. First of all, I didn't introduce myself earlier. My name is Norwell Hinds. And when we reflect on the question of significance, and you said it, it's about each generation finding their own reference points. And those reference points tell us who we are, they tell us what we are, but they also tell us what we are becoming and who we could become. And as we reflect upon this, this moment, and as we reflect also upon what it took to get to this moment, there are two things I want to add to our conversation. The first is that Guyana has a very significant story. In 1763, for enslaved peoples created the first free society, although it was only for 113 days. We don't recognize that the ideas of freedom in the letter that was written to the governor in the county of Berbice had the idea of freedom in the letter. It was the first place before the French Revolution, before the Haitian Revolution, where the idea of freedom and a free people living alongside these former masters, so to speak, was created. And that was expressed in this place, in this country, and this soil. And as we were reflecting also in that meeting a few days ago, I was thinking about what it took to really purchase those villages and the vision that was required 100 years before, I'm assuming, to purchase the villages and the cost of the villages as an enslaved person, now free, meant that somebody was putting money in a tin and putting it in the ground and saving it and saying, you will have a reference point, a moment like this, where that thing that is buried in the ground 100 years ago will be valuable, useful, and necessary. So we have talked about significance, but I want us to talk also about this question now of legacies and the future. Those reference points that we are now going to create, that we are now creating, that we are actively participating in at this moment. Now let's talk about the future that we are also creating, because the future is not this event that we're going to meet, it's not a moment that we're going to meet, it's a thing that we are continuously building. That's what we're doing now. So as we think about the future, and I want to hear from all of you, particularly I want to hear from, and I want to start with the family. Can we, and I'll start with Dante this time. I start with the woman. Tell us, what does the future mean to you?
So, I mean, it's a big topic, isn't it, the future? But I think, yeah, you just said the future is now, which is a really valuable point. And I think, for me, it's about how we move on from the feelings of the past to how we, as three people from the UK who have kind of dealt with this whole journey of understanding our heritage now, how we now translate that into things that can help the future. So for me, that is like transforming my own guilt and shame related to this topic into, friends or peers or even people that I don't know at home, giving them the courage to acknowledge their past and then bring the conversation forward and talk about it openly. Because I think that's kind of, it's the thing that we've all touched on is like, we can talk about the past, but how can we translate that into the future? And I think, for me, it's about how I translate my own feelings of guilt and shame into feeling comfortable with talking about it and learning culture and learning heritage and opening myself up to traveling to places like Guyana and understanding not only the effects of my ancestors, but also the culture, the food, the landscape, and celebrating that and bringing that forward to people who we know or don't know in the UK who are of our age, because Laura and my dad obviously are of a different generation, and obviously for them it's still very frightening, but for us we could turn a blind eye to this, or we could say, okay, how can we figure out, and we're learning, I'll say on behalf of my family, this is a whole journey for us in terms of learning and how to process it and understand it. So I think kind of having confidence to say, yes, this was my ancestors, but this wasn't me, and how can I now just be be talking openly about it and encouraging other young people especially to do the same, because yeah, that's basically it. That's how I feel.
Go ahead, Felix.
I just want to build on what Xanthi said, because I agree with all of it. But Norwell, you talked about identity, and Tristana, you also talked about attacking the curriculum. And I think in the UK, as Xanthi said, it's you know, in schools and stuff, in history, and I know we're not talking about history, but there's a point to this. But, you know, in schools, when it comes to legacies of empire and slavery, you learn about abolition in schools when you're a young British person, and you don't learn necessarily about the dark history and legacies of enslavement and indentureship. And so opening up that conversation and encouraging the curriculum to explore our identity in that sense, and where a lot of Britain's amassed wealth and identity comes from is incredibly dark past. Encouraging children and people of our age to engage with that and to view it as history, but also to view it through a prism, certainly, as Xanthi said, of guilt and shame, but also of a positivity. And like Keon said, like Xanthi said, you know, we're young, and we have got the energy and the time to put into helping, you know, both us and as British people and you guys all as Guyanese people to explore our identities further and understand where we come from, whether that's positive or negative, and use that energy to engage and encourage people to talk in the future and to make a better world for all of us, basically.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think, you know, back home in the UK, I think amongst our generation, there's something stirring, and there's people are really wanting to talk about it and wanting to educate themselves, you know, and we as a family, I think, only really got to grips with the actions of John Gladstone, you know, probably about 3 years ago, and it's been this education since, and learning, you know, we've learned so much, and I think it's our duty now to kind of go home and keep telling our friends, our family, and commit to telling future generations, because, you know, that knowledge is where that real change is going to come from.
And for you, or young Guyanese professionals, what does the future mean to you now in this particular context? What is the future that you want to build here?
All right, here we go. In terms of the future, I just want to reference the now. And in a meeting prior to this, I remember sharing with my colleagues. We were talking about the effects of slavery, and I zoned in on the psychological impacts of slavery. And I kind of alluded to carrying burdens that I knew weren't mine to carry. And just some insecurities that I knew that I shouldn't have, insecurities about things I was good at, that I knew I shouldn't have. And I know that we're all human beings and we experience this on different levels, but then science would corroborate that we tend to carry more burdens of our ancestors, blah, blah, blah. There's studies to kind of support this. And so when I think of legacy, I think of how can we, and this morning I was heading out the door, and I thought of a specific example. And I know at least 5 young men, and I'm speaking from the young African female perspective, I know at least 5 young men who've said to me, and they're young, they're intelligent, and they're doing well in their lives, that I will not date a black woman. And this was not to me, this is not to turn me down or anything of that nature. Now, I am very secure in myself, if you know anything about me. But it was, I thought about where are we headed if we're still this bound? And I said, I thought about as much as, like I preempted, I said earlier that I wholeheartedly accept your apology, and I don't necessarily believe it was, and I believe it's genuine, blah, blah, blah. But I think of the psychological impact of slavery, and when we talk about the future, I think, how does a person who isn't mentally whole, or at least mentally in a place where they can progress and thrive at a spiritual level, how do we think of a future? Because I think I can on my hand, just for reference, I can at least on two hands point out some people who are doing really well in life. And as I progressed through my life, I think I kind of thrived. But how can a person who seems to be doing really well in life and have the responsibility of raising future generations address their own psychological deficits? And when I think of future, I think of that state that we're in now, and I think that there has to be some kind of, and I know just saying, and I kind of alluded to stuff like things like family therapy and things of that nature, and I know that even the rich and the poor, the white, black and the white, do need that kind of support. But I also believe that, and perhaps it's proximity bias, but there's something that still lingers within our community, and no matter at what level a person that looks like me attains, they still feel a sense of, some or a lot, still feel a sense of brokenness. And so when I just want us to kind of, in terms of legacy, think about how we can raise children, how we can address those psychological issues within our children, even their own inadequacies, thinking that I'm less than somebody else. How can we address those things at our level so that tomorrow our kids can, like, I sit across from you, I sit across from you, I sit across from you, and I see you as another human being and my equal. And so I think for the future, how do we get our children, and I think this has a lot to do with our education, how do we get our children, or six peoples, and how do we get our children to accept or to believe, because even though it's told, to believe, to take that extra step to believe that they are equals and they are more. And I think that once you get that, you're able to attain a sense of self, then you start to maneuver through life as if I deserve, or I deserve to earn. Not just I deserve, because that's a state of entitlement, but I deserve to earn. And I'm not at a place where I condemn myself even before I've even tried. So I've kind of gone all around to get back to this. But how do I get, and this is just something to think about, because we can throw money in and we can do all this stuff, and we can look at social security systems in other nations, and we see throwing money at people just never works. And so, again, just to come right back to this, how do we address the inner brokenness of our children so that we can have healthier outlooks on life and produce people who are able to succeed and thrive just because they've addressed their own insecurities. So that's what I think about.
Thank you so
when
much, Joelle.
Right.
Thank you. Anybody else? Will? Okay.
We've
Anyone?
heard,
Sorry, Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, we've heard what Tristana said. This is an initial step. And what Jolie is saying, that this is meant to make us whole eventually. I think these are some very important ways to frame what the post-apology initiatives will look like. I want to come back to something that was said earlier that I would like for us as young people to discuss within our multifaceted Guyanese and British societies, which is what Keon had said, holding our elders accountable. This is not an easy thing to do. So the generations before us will have a very different, perhaps, take on this. We are seeing very clearly that there has been some pushback to your apology today within our own society, but also for our friends from the United Kingdom. This is a very divisive issue in your society, and in the last few years, there has been a reckoning back to empire and a restoration to what is perceived as Britain's role in the world. So, coming now back to holding our elders accountable. As young people, how might we do that when it comes to this context of admitting guilt? And for us as Guyanese, there's a lot of unlearning that we have to do. There's a lot of decolonization that we have to do from the systems that we would have inherited from this very awful period in our history. So what might be some strategies for holding elders accountable, having conversations about reconciliation, not just between metropole and colony, but also within our Guyanese society? There are many fault lines: ethnic, class, religious. How might we hold big people accountable for these kinds of conversations? Or I suppose that should be my starting point. How do we even start to talk to them about things like what happened here today?
You seem to have stumped the panel.
Gonna go home and get licks if you answer.
I suppose so. And does anybody want to take it up, though? I think this has been a demonstration of courage that everybody here has shown. And if anybody wants to take it up, I do want to say, though, that you have just about 5 minutes in total for the rest of the conversation to do so. Yeah, I was saying the Guyanese 5 minutes so that we wrap up in 10 to 15. So this is an opportunity to demonstrate more of that courage. Again, there are lots of avenues. I want to extend Brandon's question. As young people, we're existing in a different society where the tools that, Felix was talking about, learning and the opportunities for learning, and learning really today has a lot of tools to do that. There's AI, of course, that we all talk about, but there's technology everywhere. So I'm extending your question, how do we hold elders accountable, also means for us, how do we hold ourselves accountable? How do we use technology to educate elders? How do we use technology to educate ourselves? How do we extend the intergenerational dialogue across borders? So this trans-border conversation. How do we extend the conversation between people who don't really want to use TikTok and Facebook But also people who, because I'm somewhere in between the elders and the young, although I look young today, but I sent a WhatsApp message to some young people and they told me, 2 minutes for a WhatsApp message, a voice note, that's too long. I'm not going to listen to that. So we have that also. Young people who don't want to engage with learning, that's past 2 minutes. So how do we make this, how do we extend this?
Okay, well, for starters, right, I think it's always nice to communicate and interact with our elders because they've been alive much longer than us, and they have experience and wisdom that they can impart onto us. As for holding them accountable, that is a huge step. Not impossible, however, but it can be done. So first and foremost, I'd say that we are young people. We are the future. We are making a conscious decision to accept what is happening and try to move on. There are still going to be people that will hold on to the past, and it will hinder them. It'll be weights on them. They can't move forward unless they try to accept it. They may not have to forgive it, but let us at least accept it and build from that and move on. Yeah, but for the holding them accountable part, that's a serious discussion. We can start with VC.
When I say elders, I don't just mean your parents. I mean those who govern our society, our families, those in positions of authority like our council at UG, in general. Not so much so just in your families, but that is a key and critical component of it, yeah.
All right, so I don't know that it's even culturally appropriate to hold our elders accountable. But just in terms of I'll address our family context, just how I've addressed mine, and then I'll give a big picture response. I tend to employ logic and facts when I'm reasoning with my elders, and sometimes most times it's impossible for them to accept that something I've come to know and accept as true and right it just isn't. I've had people sit across the room and tell me, that is not true, and I'm like, okay, but here are the facts. That is not true. But I think that we approach them respectfully. I think that we acknowledge that they have built the world that we currently live in and we're expanding on. Too many times we approach the conversation as though we know it all, and that's just how we are because we're young and there's a power struggle. And so I think that what we kind of have to do is revisit our approach. We align our thoughts, we revisit our approach, and we just continuously employ logic and facts. And you know what? Whether they accept that or not, the world is ours, and they'll carry on at some point. That's just the fact of life. And then we'll be the big people that the younger generations are fighting against and telling us that the way we've learned it and the way that we're doing it is just not right. And that just is the power play that will continue and continue and continue. But I just say keep it respectful and keep it logical and have your thoughts aligned and properly documented.
Good.
To follow on what she's saying, I do believe that us millennials are more open to change. And I believe that a lot of us honestly do not have an issue saying exactly what is on our mind and how we're feeling and all these things, and God forgive us when we answer them back. But we are open to change, and especially seeing how things were before and how things are now, with moving forward, what I think can be done, and I do believe has started to begin, is that the way you actually speak to other people. Because, you know, when you were growing up, if you have older parents, I use that term lightly, and grandparents and older relatives, they would say things in a certain way, and then you'll just have a moment, why you gotta say it like that? You know, but as we get older as well, and as we have our own children, we will speak differently to the younger generation. How we were spoken to growing up, you ask a question, but mommy, why, but daddy, why, but because I say so. You know, now things are, we're more open and we're explaining things more. And I think with going to that level of explaining why we mustn't do this, or why you mustn't refer to a certain race or ethnicity of people like this or like that, would help the future generations as well as ourselves, because I know there's still a lot of persons within our generation who use terms very loosely, you know, but if you explain to them, okay, this is how this started, this is why people are referred to in such a way, this is how people feel about it, this is why people are upset when you call them these various terms, or use different phrases, people will be able to have an understanding like, well, okay, oh, I now get it, I now understand why. So it will have to most definitely start with us, and even with the big people. You know, when we are around them, if they say certain things, I don't see anything wrong with saying something of the sort, well, you know, I really don't appreciate when you say things like that. Or when you have your children to say, well, please do not speak to my children like that. Yeah, sorry. Please do not speak to my children like that. I don't want my children to learn that in that way or something like that. I know there are going to be some older generations who is lying at time with she does how I start. You know, but at least you would be able to get that out there and get some level of respect, because I give you respect, you give me respect. I don't care if you're 100 years older than I am. We both have to respect each other. So for me, it's just a change in which we say things, and to be able to explain why we say certain things or why we do not say certain things, that will help us to move forward. Accountability, some will take the accountability, yes. Then you're going to have the old stubborn set, the own way, the hard-headed, and you know. But at the same time, you just have to say how you feel and what's on your mind. You cannot make people accept your beliefs. You know, you cannot impose how you feel on others, but at least you got it out there, and if they accept it, amen, we move forward. If they can't accept it, at least you know you got it off of your chest. You were able to explain how you feel and how things can change, and that's all we can do.
Thank you. Malika?
I want to say briefly, this what is happening here today, I would like it to be seen as an important dialogue, something that I've heard on stage from the younger generation in the Gladstone family is shame, and a sense of responsibility, guilt. They haven't chosen this path for themselves, but they're using their influence to raise awareness, accept what happened, and by engaging with us, listening. I think an apology, although there may be actions that are intended to happen, I think these can only be successful if the person or persons who they're extending the apology to are able to understand and first be willing to move forward. So I think part of, you know, sharing how they feel is also persons' willingness to accept and move forward. I think that also is something that will be very, very important. So personally, I would implore, you know, listening audience, persons at home, older persons to first accept the apology. It's the only way we can move on.
Thank you, Malika. And I want to now ask, as we come to the end of this segment of today's program, to ask each of you, now there are 14 people on the stage, or 13, So I can't do 1 minute, we can't do 1 minute. So we'll do half a minute. And we'll start with you, Brandon. And then finally, I'm going to close off the session. Your parting words. Just what do you feel? This microphone is the problem, not me. Your parting words, how do you feel?
Let's get to work. There is so much to do. Yeah.
Change can be challenging and difficult, but we need to strategically and carefully, respectfully, in a spirit of love and oneness, be able to use our gifts to make that difference in the world. Coming to this point, I'm certain was a processing and difficult journey for all of us, and myself, beginning to process everything and sitting here and continuing this conversation. But I took a step to come here, and the longest journey begins with a single step, and we need to continue putting one foot in front of the other in the right direction to make our world a better place.
Thank you, Keon. Dante?
I just wanted to say thank you basically to all of you and to everyone in the audience just for accepting us and allowing us to say our apology, but also just, the lack of judgment and the warmness. It allows us to feel confident to continue the conversation and continue on this journey of healing for everyone. So thank you.
So thank you to the family for coming all the way to Guyana. It's going to be a long and hard journey, but we've already started, and so we just continue from here as long as we work together.
I think that's it, really, is working together and combination. And I think that's another point about how we can hold our elders accountable, is by working with them and alongside them and using our energy, of which there is clearly a lot amongst everyone here, and ample intelligence as well. And like Keon said, put 1 foot forward, 1 foot in front of the other even, and move forward.
Well, I do believe as you go along the panel, you'll basically be hearing the same things. But as everyone has said, we just have to work together. And the only way we can move forward is if we do that. It doesn't matter who's where, what happened. It's okay. An apology was made. Next step is take the best foot in the right direction and follow that leg. Don't get confused. And let's just go forward together as one. Because at the end of the day, you cut any one of us, we bleed the same color blood. So we're still one.
All right, I just want to say let's continue to imagine and let's continue to dream. And I just want to extract this part of our national anthem. Ours is the glory their eyes did not see. I know where my ancestors were, and I know where I am. And if we can get to where we are today, guess what? I'm pretty sure that tomorrow can be a brighter day once we pull our resources together and decide that tomorrow is going to be better than it is today.
I think what I want everyone to know is that we've done this with just love in our hearts and with the purest of intentions and the willingness to make a real difference. And I want everyone here to know that we're we're willing to be challenged. It's a complex issue. We're not ignoring the complexities of all this. But yeah, I think I just want everyone to know that we're with you on this journey, and it's the start of a journey, and we're looking to the future and we're looking forward to it.
I will say that let's put our differences aside and continue to work in unity and in equity. That's all.
I would like to say congratulations on taking the very first step, and I do look forward to the future steps that will lead us into a better direction for a more prosperous future for all.
I would say what I've said before. We cannot change the past, even though I know how gruesome people may think about it, and people who heard about it, we who did history class. And I know it will continue, people will continue to hear about it, but we just can't go back and change it. And now that this is the first step, an apology, and I know there was the option of them not thinking about an apology, but they being here and actually come here to give an apology, I think that's already a step forward. So that is, and I'm sure with all of us here, we're excited to see a bigger future for us.
Thank you, Charika. I learned that in Egyptian cosmology, in order to enter providence, you know, this idea of providence, your heart had to be weighed against a feather, right? And we know a feather is not very heavy. And a heart, we might assume, might be heavy. And therefore, the challenge really was, how does one in their life, as we survey life, do the things, take the actions, account for the inactions that lighten our heart. And a lot of the themes that we discussed today, trauma. And trauma of indenture, trauma of enslavement, but trauma of also participating in that as a profiteering person. That also had trauma. Trauma as an overseer who whipped the enslaved, and how that is passed on. And trauma lives in the DNA. So therefore, trauma is carried from generation to generation, and trauma is felt, trauma is experienced, trauma is shared, trauma is reshared, trauma is constantly engaged with our lives. And therefore, healing, and what is another theme that came up a lot in the conversation today, healing is also not just good for ourselves and our lives today and what we do and the actions that we're going to take going forward, but healing, which is a significant theme that came from all of you, is an important aspect of our providence also, if we believe the Egyptians, and if we believe that our hearts will be weighed against a feather. There was a reason why I read also and was told that somewhere somebody was studying some archives in Britain and saw a note that said that British Guyana was the gem in the crown of the British Empire. And I said, well, that's interesting. This tiny country on the northeastern shoulder of South America, a little 83,000 square kilometers, was the gem of this empire that stretched the entire world. In fact, larger than the Roman Empire, larger than the Egyptian Empire, if you think about those things. And I had to ask, why would Guyana be the gem? And this that we did here is a demonstration of why Guyana is the gem. Because Guyana is the best place, the first place, to demonstrate to the world that the true legacy of indenture and enslavement is the possibility of a new civilization, a new kind of civilization. And therefore, I want to thank all of you for your time today, for your participation, for your honesty, for your reflection, and for sharing your traumas, and for engaging in healing. Thank you very much, and thank you all for being a great audience.
So now, yes, so now moving forward, we have about 20 minutes where we would like to engage. You've heard all of us speak. If there are members of the UG family who are present today, everyone here, if you would like to comment, ask questions, or share from you know, just anything that happened today, directed more so towards what we have discussed, we would welcome you to do so now. Yes, please. Can we get, let's forfeit some of these microphones.
Who's the person?
Hi, good day, and thank you very much to the Gladstone family for what they have, this journey that they would have started here. As I've said to reporters, I have mixed emotions about the apology, and I wanted to ask Mr. Gladstone, like, how does he feel personally having given the apology? The legacies of slavery has left an indelible mark, and when we look at what is happening in the oil and gas, and here I want to point to the recent study done to show African Guyanese are not even at the table. Slavery was an economic enterprise. It didn't only dehumanize and destroy, it built wealth. The wealth that Great Britain sits upon is because of the free labor of the enslaved. And where are African Guyanese in the oil and gas? Do we even have a company? Where are we in this largas? How are we going to move forward in the future? How are we going to forward triumphantly, in the words of Bob Marley, if we're not even at the table for us to have economic empowerment? And this is why the UN Decade for the People of African Descent speaks to recognition, justice, and your empowerment. We need to know that we are going to have some sort of economics within our communities to raise our level. You know, right here at the university, education is so hard. And when Forbes Burnham ensured it's in the Constitution of Guyana to free education, the cost for an education, a person with little means, they can't even get in the door. So we want to return free education that is in our Constitution. Reparations means lifting people out of the conditions that they are under. And I am here pleading for the African, people of African descent, to have a seat at the oil and gas table. We are being pushed to the side. Every time we look, the people who take out pictures don't look like I and I. They don't have the skin like me. Everybody else comes to Guyana and they're inside the door. But African Guyanese, we are begging in a country that we have fought and built with free labor. We are still on the sidelines and being marginalized. And so, Mr. Gladstone, I thank you. Give thanks. May God bless you and your family's heart. But the legacies of slavery, we still live with it. We look every day, we look around and we don't see a Guyana where African Guyanese are truly a part of. And I would have warned that the very statues that you were looking at, Kwamina, Damon, Kofi, those statues stand to mean something. It means that we will rebel. You will have a rebellion. The African spirit will never accept dehumanization, discrimination, and destruction anymore. We have fought and we deserve a seat at the table. I thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that eloquent and beautiful comment. I think your first question was, how do I feel? And I understand that you feel ambiguous. I hope that we've made a step in the right direction is how I feel. And I know that nothing can be resolved quickly or easily. But that is my main response, is that I hope that we've made a step in the right direction. And I understand that your skepticism, and I completely respect it. And I have nothing but good intentions in trying to achieve what we're trying to achieve.
Right. I see someone has the microphone, please.
Yeah, good day, Mr. Gladstone. Thank you for being here today. But I have two questions. One is the economic side, as she indicated, but a deep economic side, where the condition of black people have lands, but deprived here of financial help or even assistance from the bank or approval from the bank to even get into any economic venture. For instance, the government may have given you land previously, but you might find that the current administration might remove the bridges from where you have farmland. For instance, Wales Estate. They give us land. But the same condition as in 1620 slavery, we still continue to. I'm a product of that instance where I have farm at Wales. I got it from Nissil. But they removed the bridges, even though I planted it. What I'm saying, you might gonna establish poetry, but Africa needed economic support from you, the slave master, that bring us here against our will. What we need is financial institutions for you to help us establish, to move our product and to advance ourselves economically. The spiritual aspect will take care of it. As the Creator said, judgment belongs to Him. But no settlement in respect to slavery cannot come unless the Creator's judgment fall upon those that enslave us. But I'm saying, for you to assist us, put 90% of your energy in economics for us so that we could advance as a people. At the table here, it should be half the seed of the slave and half those that came to make apology. Yes, there's a right step in the direction for our economic advancement throughout the Caribbean, especially in Guyana, where racial discrimination on the strategic point where location do business affect us as Africans, which the government do not see us as on the table at any moment. With that, I wish that you could help us in terms of that.
Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you very much indeed, sir.
Sorry.
I think that our plans are try to find a way in which we can help to fund over the long term this excellent department at the university here through our family in whatever way we can, because I think our belief is that one of the differences that we can make in a big way is through education and the understanding of history. So I think that's that's a short answer to a long question.
Right. I see that.
Sorry. I just wanted to say, just in the interest of time, because it was timekeeping, that this would be our last question. There's a pressing one that comes after, and also to ask if there's any question for the young people that are on the panel here today. So just that bit of housekeeping. So please go ahead, Dr. Murray.
So good afternoon, everyone. It's not a question I have, but I just want to comment. I'm of African descent, I'm of European descent, I'm of Amerindian descent, I'm of Portuguese descent. So I'm a descendant of all these people.
You're Guyanese?
Yes, I'm a Guyanese. But the point I'm trying to make, though, when I sat here today, there was this part of me I never knew would have been touched by the apology and by all that took place there. My heart was well and truly broken when I thought of what the African ancestors of mine would have gone through to be where we are. But I was extremely touched too by my other part of my ancestry, which came here to offer an apology for something they did not do. I could imagine how hard that was too. I like the fact that we have begun this kind of conversation that can only take us a step further into the future. And young people, you are right. It's in your hands now. My generation might not be as open-minded as me. They might not have the kind of experiences I have had. So they might think differently about what happened today. But an apology is not something to trivialize. anyone who has had to apologize for anything, know the place they had to go to even say, I am sorry. So to the Gladstone family, thank you very much for making that journey and coming here to offer it openly in the manner that you did. I know it would not have been easy, but I thank you. I thank the university. I thank my African sisters and brothers, my European sisters and brothers, Portuguese and Amerindians, for being open-minded too and being able to take, even if it's a little tiny step forward, to embrace what has happened here today. Thank you all very much.
Okay, and we thank you so much, Dr. Murray. We do have to it's a democratic society and have to be proper. We did say one more question, so since that technically wasn't a question, we have time for one question.
There are a couple over there.
There was a question at the back, I think.
Yeah.
Who was? Okay.
Thank you very much. I have a comment as well.
You have a comment?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
People are getting smart with this thing. This will be the last.
I just want to say once again, thank you to the Gladstone family for their statements and their apology. What is imperative is for us to understand and appreciate that in relation to enslaved Africans, what happened during slavery and immediately after slavery. The system that was put in place is for the black man not to succeed. I am looking at page 14 of the book, The Guyana Reparation Story, and what the Africans went through after slavery. For instance, the other groups that came to Guyana were giving certain privileges to place them above the Africans, to ensure that the Africans don't succeed. For example, lands, payments, and so forth. So as we go forward, we must acknowledge the legacy today and what we're suffering. My sister here mentioned our inability to get into the oil industry, but it's because there's no equity. And for African Guyanese to reach at that level, we cannot treat or we cannot lump all of the people's issues together. They are different. Each group has the right to espouse their claim, but we must acknowledge at the same time, and it must not be to the detriment of enslaved Africans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of this segment. I want to thank you once again for being an excellent audience. I want to... Wanda Milton, please stand. Wanda was actually expected to be on the panel here today, but as you can see, she's a teacher in training and had to step away for a little while. So she is in the room, and therefore the very final word in this segment will be just an opportunity for her to say a little bit.
Good afternoon, Tombama. Vieparoliama. Tombama. Tengi Kuruat Epi Chakomberg, Survey, Wepi Parasika. Mr. President, persons on the panel, special invitees, all, I just want to say a heartfelt acknowledgement on behalf of our indigenous people in Guyana, and not only the indigenous people, but also other ethnic groups. I would like to appreciate you, Gladstone family, for coming into this country to ask for apology. We accept your apology. The history is going to remain there, but I really appreciate what you did. You make an effort. It's not an easy task to stand there, and it's not an easy road, but you have made it through, and I know that we're going to work together as one people, one nation, one destiny. Thank you.
Once again, thank you all very much for indulging us.